You're listening to a highlight from One Nation with Dov Lipman on Voice of Israel.
Welcome back to One Nation on Voice of Israel. I am Dov Lipman. Now we get to, I don't want to say my favorite part of the show because that would make it seem like I'm not excited about the rest of it, but the opportunity to share some thoughts with you about the weekly Torah portion. I'm an educator by background. I'm a rabbi, and this gives me the opportunity to share some thoughts with all of you. This week's Torah portion is the Parsha of Shelach, and it's the famous story of the spies that were sent to the land of Israel by Moshe, by Moses, before the Israelites were going to enter the land. As all of us know, the story did not end so well as the spies came back, and 10 of them reported a negative report about the land of Israel. It led the people of Israel to cry and feel a lack of desire to even go to the land, and that ended up bringing us to 40 additional years, 40 years in the desert before the next generation could enter the land of Israel. Now, the question has to be asked. The portion emphasizes at the beginning that Moses chose the greatest leaders, the most righteous, to be these spies. They weren't people who were necessarily chosen for their tactical talents, but it was because of where they were spiritually, because certainly he wanted them to come back and excite the people and inspire them about the land of Israel. And yet these great people came back and they gave a negative report about the land of Israel. And the question is, how did that happen? How did they fail? How did these people who understood that this was the promised land come back with such a negative report and plunge the people into such despair? The commentaries all deal with this question, and there are many different answers. I want to focus on one of them. There are many commentaries that say that when they were living in the desert, they were living a very spiritual life. They were just focusing on their spirituality. They didn't have to earn a living. They were provided with their food. The manna fell from the heavens, so they were given their food. They were protected physically by the clouds of glory. Everything was handed to them, and they could just live sort of this heavenly world to come type of existence. Now they're going to have to enter the land of Israel, and they're going to have to actually work the land. They're going to have to go out every day by the sweat of their brow and support their families. They're going to have to join the army and fight in all kinds of military battles against the inhabitants of this land. All of these efforts, both the military efforts and the earning a livelihood, would distract them completely from their spiritual pursuits, and they didn't want it. They simply wanted to remain in their spiritual bubble, in the cocoon, in the loving embrace of God, which they had in the desert. And that is what that subconscious feeling which they had got them off course and made them notice all these challenges and issues with the land of Israel, and that prompted them to bring this report to the people. This is a very powerful and clear point for all of us. Again, they understood the challenges that would face them when they came to the land of Israel, and that's what prompted them to give this negative report and ultimately led their whole generation not to enter the land of Israel. Living in Israel is not easy. When God says that we're going to have the land of milk and honey, he never promises that it's going to come in any kind of an easy fashion. And our sages actually teach that there are 3 things that are acquired with great suffering, and one of those is the land of Israel. And that applies on both a national level and on an individual level. I'll start with an individual level. Making Aliyah, moving to Israel, something which for me was the greatest decision my wife and I ever made in our lives, and we provided our children with a Jewish life here in the land of Israel. But boy, is it filled with challenges at every step of the way. But if you know that you're going to have those challenges, then you're able to withstand them. And I think that this Torah portion is what tells us that we will have those challenges. They didn't want to enter the land because of how difficult it would be for them to support their families. And that's a major challenge, moving to the land of Israel, finding a way to have what we call parnasah. It's not as easy as it is in other places in the world, but that is what our Torah portion is telling us. We know in advance that it's going to be difficult, and the portion also tells us the potentially catastrophic catastrophic results of giving in to that negative feeling and rejecting the land because of those challenges. Certainly on a physical level, our children are exposed to dangers. Our children are drafted into an army when they're 18 years old. There's no doubt that those challenges are there as well. But the moment that you know that that's what's part of acquiring this land on an individual level, you're able to embrace it. And I'll be able to say that my 18-year-old son, who, if we were living in the United States right now, his decision-making process would be what program to go on for his gap year in Israel, what university to attend afterwards. Now it's, what is my army process going to be? What are the next few years? What unit will I join? How do I get there? Where should I study in yeshiva first to best prepare myself for those years in the army? So on an individual level, that challenge is there. And we need to look at this Torah portion and say, okay, we recognize that it's part of the gift of the land of Israel and not reject the land because of those issues on an individual level. On a national level, it's certainly the case. You look at our history in the state of Israel and the challenges that have faced us, both economically and militarily. When we go to election cycles, the question is, what's going to be the issue? Is it going to be security or it's going to be the economy? Both of them are issues, and it's amazing to open up the Torah portion and see that's the issue, which they had in their time. That's what led them as a nation to reject the land of Israel. We have to learn from that, and as a nation, embrace the land of Israel and recognize that's going to be part of the challenges that we have in this land. And as we sit back and read the portion this week, everyone, those who live in Israel and those who live outside of Israel, should certainly internalize this idea and never let the challenges of living in the land of Israel lead to a rejection of living in the land of Israel. It's just the opposite. Recognize that nothing really worthwhile comes without effort and without challenges. Recognize that you'll have those challenges. Take the plunge, make the decision, make Israel a part of your life, and it will be the most rewarding decision that you